Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Tracy with JDL Threads, and thank you guys for joining me today. And what I'm going to be doing for you guys today, since we do have the 4th of July quickly approaching, and we have this very famous song, Taking Off, Boots on the Ground, what we're going to be doing today is we are going to be embroidering a USA Cowboy hat and some USA Cowboy boots. That's right, guys. We're going to put it on an embroidery machine, and we're just going to jump on the bandwagon and do the boots on the ground. All right. So what we're going to need today is we are going to be using plastic as my fabric because, you know, I'm trying that new method as to making my patches. We're also going to be using some cutaway stabilizer. I'm going to be using my lighter to burn the edges, some little scissors to trim out my patch, and then I'm also, I'm going to pull out my 5 by 10.341 mighty hoop to go ahead and get both of these designs embroidered out on my embroidery machine today. We're also going to be using the Ricoma MT1501, and yeah, head on over to my craft table where we can go ahead and get this thing set up so we can get it stitched out. Let's go. All right, everybody, so I'm over at the craft table, and first we're going to put down the bottom half of our mighty hoop like that. We're going to first put down our cutaway stabilizer because that's going to be the actual bottom of our support, just like any other design that we would be doing. Then we're going to put our plastic on top because I'm going to be using that as my fabric since I'm learning how to do this particular method. So there we go. All we're going to do is we're going to take our top hoop and we're going to put it right on there. And you hear that your fabric or plastic, my fabric, is beating like a drum. So that's the sound that we want to hear, just like that. All right, so let's head on over to the Ricoma MT1501 where we'll go ahead and put this on so we can get this stitched out, you guys. Let's go. Okay, everybody, all we're going to do is we are going to insert our mighty hoop into the embroidery machine like that. I'm just going to check to make sure I got it all the way in. It is good. And I'm going to do a trace now to make sure that I do not hit that embroidery frame. Here we go. We're going to be using this same hoop to do both patches. I'm just going to do one patch on this side and then the other patch on this side. So let's go ahead and do our trace, everybody. All right, and that's just a little close for my liking, so I'm just going to push it over just a bit. And we're going to do our another trace. And let's do a slow trace, everybody. This part of the hoop is still hitting the arm underneath, so I'm going to just push it over just a little bit more and do another trace. All right, that looks good to me. So we've got our colors in. Let's go ahead and get started. Here we go. Okay, you guys, this patch came already with a border on it. And oh yeah, by the way, I did get it from embroiderydesigns.com. So since I did not go in and make that extra placement stitch and then the tack down stitch and all of that, what I'm going to do now is I just stop my embroidery machine and I'm just going to go ahead and cut around this line that went around the hat already. And then I'm going to go ahead and let it do the satin stitch around once I cut my cutaway stabilizer from the bottom. Okay, so you can go in if you have digitizing software and go ahead and put all that in. But since it already came with a border, I did not. So I'm just going to go ahead and take my hoop out of my machine and cut out the stabilizer on the bottom so that when it gets ready to do that satin stitch, it can just go ahead and do that satin stitch and I won't have to cut it out from the bottom. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Again, I did stop the machine, you guys, so I'm going to just cut this thread here and cut my bottom thread on the bottom. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go underneath here, make a small cut around, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut around my patch. And try not to cut your plastic too, guys. Whether you got your plastic on top or bottom, try not to cut it. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on pause and I'll come back to show you guys what it looks like once I get it cut out. All right, everybody. So as you can see, I went ahead and cut my stabilizer out on the back side and I just pinned it out of the way because I don't want it to catch once it does do that satin border around. So I'm just going to go ahead and put it back into the embroidery machine now and let it do the satin stitch. Now again, you can go in and do an applique if you have the digitizing software and make it do the tag down, the placement stitch and the satin stitch, but I just didn't do all that. I just took the shortcut and I'm going to go ahead and back it up and let it do its satin stitch around. So here we go. All right, you guys, and let me take it out and tell you guys what happened. So you see it did not stitch my satin stitch correctly around the border that it was supposed to stitch around. And guess why, you guys? Because when I put my hoop into my embroidery machine, this side was not pushed all the way back in until I heard that click. So it was out a little bit. So now I'm going to have to go ahead and do that guy one more time. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'll show you guys what the good one looks like when I have my hoop pushed all the way back in. All right, everybody. So I did go ahead and get the second hat stitched out. As you can see, the first hat where I did not push my embroidery hoop all the way back into the brackets and hear that click, you see it had registration issues. It did not sew on the bottom of that line where it was supposed to sew. However, once I redid it and I pushed my bracket in properly, my hoop into my brackets properly, now you see that it just stitched all the way around that had where it was supposed to stitch out. And then guys, guess what? Peels out perfectly. So all you would have to do is go on the back side, make sure you get off all of your plastic on the back before you put down your heat, sticky heat. I can't think of the name right now, but your double-sided sticky to iron your patch on to the back of whatever garment that you're ironing it on. I can't call the name right now, forgive me. Okay, but as you can see, I did go around. When I went around, I did cut a piece of my plastic out that I didn't want to cut out. So in that case, if you do that, you guys, all you need to do is float another piece of plastic underneath your patch where you accidentally made that cut. So once it does do that satin stitch around, it'll go ahead and have the support that it needs to stitch out that patch without any registration issues. Okay, so all that's done now, all that's left that we have to do now is we're just going to trim some of these trims, and I'm going to hit it with my lighter, and we'll be ready to put down the double-sided sticky so I can go ahead and stick it onto my garment, which I'm not going to do that in this video. I am just going to show you guys how to take your lighter and just go around your edges and melt in your edges like so. That's all you do. And it just melts that plastic right on in, and it gives you a nice fine finish all the way around. And there you go. So that's patch number 1. I'm going to go ahead and get set up for my boots, 4th of July boots. We're going to hoop it the exact same way, throw it onto the Ricoma MT1501, and we're going to go ahead and stitch those boots out. embroidery, and with that the embroidery design is done. So now all we have to do is just go ahead and pop it out of the plastic like so. Now I did put this in reverse order. I did the black first and then the red. So I did add another piece of plastic back on the back, just so it could be enough stabilizer when it did that red around, and the patch would not move from being stitched out with the outline on the back first. I think, however, that I will go back in and change that and have it stitch out the red first and then the black, as to not lose the right orientation of my stitch out, and so I won't have to add that extra plastic. Then the last step is I'm just going to go around with the heat and just melt in some of those stitches around the border. That's it. And be careful, guys, not to burn your finger. I like using my little torch gun here. And there you have it. And there you have it, guys. We have our boots on the ground, cowboy hat, and cowboy boots for our 4th of July embroidery patches. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, my name is Tracy with JDL Threads. And like, share, and subscribe for me. And I'll see you guys in the next video.